Okay, so we are dealing with um, 2.19, which is choosing the correct trigonomic ratio. We know that the hypotenuse, or HYP, is the side opposite to the 90-degree angle, or that longest side. We know that the opposite side, if we have an angle, it's the opposite side to the angle under investigation, and the adjacent, we know, is the side that is closest to the angle under investigation. Can somebody write in the chat our 3 acronyms we use for trigonometry? What are the 3 acronyms we use? Actually, not somebody, everybody write it. What are the 3 acronyms we use? Everyone write that in the chat. So some of you have a couple of them wrong. TAN is not an acronym. What is the acronym for TAN we use? Make sure you sort that out. It's TOA. Thank you. Okay, so we've got SO, CA, and TOA. If I put a X in any angle, you should be able to figure out what we can use. So if we have the sine ratio, if I have my X here, we're going to use the opposite side and the hypotenuse. If I have cos X for this side, I would be using this next triangle here, I would be using the adjacent and the hypotenuse. And if I have tan, I'd be using the opposite over the adjacent. So I can use any of the trigonomic ratios based on what I have. So if I just have the hypotenuse and the adjacent, I use cosine. If I just have the opposite and hypotenuse, I use sine. And finally, if I just have the opposite and the adjacent, I use tan. And we're going to be figuring it out based on the following scenarios. Now, we have our angle in question, which is X. What trigonomic ratio are we going to use based on this for answer A? Which one are we going to use? Type it out in the chat. Type it out in the chat which one we're going to use based on what we have. So I got a lot of discrepancies here. Let's think about what we have here. Angle, I have the hypotenuse, and I have the adjacent. So which one am I going to use? I'm seeing a couple right ones in a row. So we're going to use CA, right? Because it has the adjacent and the hypotenuse. So it would be cos X is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. Cos X would be equal to 3 divided by 5. Which would be cos X is equal to 0.6. And remember, if I'm finding an angle, I bring that over and it's cos -1. So X would be then equal to, our final answer would be what? .53 degrees is correct. Okay. So it's going to become really important now that we're able to figure out which one is the correct trigonomic ratio we're going to use, okay? It's going to be very important. For our next one, we have opposite. Which trigonomic ratio are we going to use? Write it in the chat, please. Seen a couple right answers in a row. Sorry? Yeah, exactly. Awesome. So we've got TOA because we have opposite and adjacent. So we're going to have tan x is equal to opposite over adjacent. Tan x would be equal to, we just sub our numbers in, so 7/4. Tan x would be equal to 1.75. We know if we're finding an angle, we got to move it over and it becomes tan -1. And our final answer would be 60 degrees. So you're going to have to start making some decisions on what you think here. Okay, make sure you get that down. Okay, the next one says find the side lengths of the unknown side to one decimal place. So whenever there's an x, guys, that's where x or y or any of the letters, that's what we're looking for. So for the first one, what would be what do we use? Yes, so that's what opposite and hypotenuse is what? It's sin, right? So, or sine, it's so opposite over adjacent. So we would use sine, right? SOA, we've got our opposite and we have our hypotenuse. So is what we use. So sine x is equal to the opposite over hypotenuse. Thank you for that. And then it would be sine, 40 is going to go into this spot, is equal to x over 10. We know that we want x by itself, so we got to find out what sine 40 is equal to. And that should be 0.6428. And we're also going to multiply it by 10 because we're moving that over to equal x. And therefore, that side length, x, is going to be equal to 6.4 centimeters. Okay. Last example of the whole unit. What do we got here? Which trigonomic ratio are we going to use? Let's see a bunch of people write it out. We're having some confusion. Think about what we got. We've got the angle. Opposite of the angle is the opposite. The big long side, or the opposite of the 90 degree, is our hypotenuse. And the one right here or right beside the angle is adjacent. So I'm going to ask you one more time to write in the chat, which one do we use? Write in the chat. Write in the chat. Write in the chat. Seeing a couple answers come in. I need to see some more people engage here. Yep, you are correct. It is TOA because we want to find the adjacent. We don't know the hypotenuse, but we have the opposite, so we can help ourselves with it. So it's going to be tan x is equal to the opposite over adjacent. We can begin to fill them in. So it would be tan 55 is equal to 8 over y in this case. Oop. And we know we got to find out what tan 55 is. It's going to be 1.4281 is equal to 8 over y. Remember, we need to cross multiply and get that y up there. So it'd be 1.4281 times y equals 8, but we want y by itself. So since it's multiplied on this side, it's going to be division on that side. So it'd be 8 divided by 1.4281. We should come up with the answer. Y is equal to 5.6 meters.